Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Climbing Sycamores podcast, where we look at today's topics to get a better view of Christianity. I'm Annie Beege, and I'm joined by my friends Ben Sadler and Matt Harbach. Welcome back, guys. So we're going to do part two and kind of carry on what we were doing last week, responding to some TikToks, and one of particularly one from the creator. Her name is Kristi, Kristi, and she's on TikTok, and she has a lot of content concerning deconstruction and former Christian, and now trying to debunk everything. So we like to listen to these, and
I think it's super important because I think this is where people are getting their theology.
Mm-hmm.
I wish the whole deconstruction movement, it's so popular right now, and you can find a lot of information. A lot of the big name Christians have deconstructed. I really want to see what to construct in its place. If you don't, don't like, if you had a bad experience in Christianity, if you think the theology is all wrong, what is the new theology or the new worldview that you're going to construct?
I think she would argue self.
Okay, self. Okay,
and we'll hear that in the clip. I think she can. Yeah. All right.
Let's go for it.
Okay.
Yep.
Why does someone need to die for my sins? What have I done so wrong that someone needs to die for it? And why does someone else need to die for it if it's something that I've done wrong? This whole idea of atonement for sins being wrapped up in the death of a person seems really wild to me. Doesn't it seem wild to you that in order for you to be forgiven by God, someone else had to die? And that God thinks that you've done things that are so wrong in your life that the death penalty is required? What have you done so wrong in your life that you should be killed for it? And why is it justice if someone else is killed instead? Christianity has done such a phenomenal job of convincing people that this is such an appropriate system, that people do things that offend God, and God can't forgive them unless he kills someone. And then he's going to use that death to guilt them all and be like, look what I did for you. Why don't you love me? That is so manipulative. That's so incredibly manipulative. I don't need a scapegoat. I don't even do anything so bad that anybody has to die for. It doesn't have to be that serious. And even if I did, even if I was doing something so serious that I deserve to be punished for, why are we trying to punish someone else instead of punishing me for it? I don't need a scapegoat. I don't need someone else to atone for things that I've done. I'm perfectly capable of atoning for things that I've done myself. And if God so desperately needs this holy blood sacrifice in order to forgive me, that's a him problem, not a me problem.
So that's a lot to unpack there.
Right. But again, I think if you're listening to this in isolation by yourself, I can see how you sit on TikTok and watch a bunch of videos and you're not a Christian anymore, because she does a good job also of kind of making it seem silly, being sarcastic, kind of dismissive. So I think it's, again, really important that we're taking the time to break down a video to give some explanation.
Well, and honestly, I've had the same thought. I've had the same thought of like, it really doesn't make sense that if I'm the wrongdoer, why is somebody else taking the punishment, right?
Sure.
And why does that even need to occur? And for me personally, and I don't think this is a suitable answer for other people, but for me personally, I am comfortable saying this is just this idea of justice and love and grace. This goes beyond and outside of my realm of understanding. I'm willing to say that. I know that that is not an acceptable answer for some people. So I guess, like I said, I've thought this through. It seems like it's not justice for somebody else to die for the things that I've done. But I've just resolved to say, well, this is beyond my control and out of my understanding, and I'm just going to run with it,
Yeah. Well, so why does somebody need to die? I think that's one of the questions. If you go back to how the Bible presents the beginning, there's life. There's flourishing, that we were created to live and to flourish, that everything was good. And the opposite of life is death, is decay, is walking away from God, who is life, who is light and life and perfection. And we brought death into this world. We brought sin and death and decay in this world to undo what God has created. And so the wages of sin is death. That's the reality. What we've done has turned God's good creation upside down. And so to overcome our greatest enemy, the one thing we can escape is death. We can almost escape or buy our way or, use technology to get our way out of anything, but we can't find a way around this reality of death. And so Jesus came to swallow up death and to resolve death and to give us a resurrected life. And that's how the Bible speaks about it. So the problem is death, and that's his death solves that problem with the resurrection. He goes into death, the thing that we don't want to go into, and we don't know how to resolve that thing we can't fight against or win, and he swallows it up with his own death.
Could he swallow up taxes too?
There you go.
Yeah,
death and taxes. Yeah, two inevitable problems.
Right.
So that's one answer of why did he have to die. The other answer is, we feel a sense of death anytime someone wrongs us and we don't get back at them. So if you do something to me, I have a choice. I can either die to that or absorb that pain, or I can take it back out on you and make you pay. Somebody's got to pay, though. Mm-hmm. And so that's just justice, to keep the scales even. Somebody's got to pay. And God has decided in his love that he is going to take on the debt. And so there's all sorts of metaphors that the Bible uses, and all of them limp at some level, but that our sin is like a financial debt, that our sin is like a relational
betrayal.
Thank you. Relational betrayal, like cheating. Often the Old Testament, it's a picture of a spouse cheating on their spouse, and so that relationship has to be repaired, and so something has to happen to repair and reconcile that relationship, and somebody's got to pay to reconcile that relationship. So there's all different ways that it's the metaphors that are used, and it's interesting that most world religions have some kind of sacrifice that people make. Throughout time, they knew that something had to be done. This isn't a unique thing to Christianity, that a sacrifice had to be made, whether a financial sacrifice or a blood sacrifice. They knew that the problems in this world were so bad that something had to be sacrificed. And that plays out with Jesus.
Just consistent, with
and
that idea.
And even things that aren't religions. If
Okay.
there's like daily meditation or a period of fasting, or even just people who are trying to like regiment exercise or dieting, they're like giving up something. They're sacrificing something that they just kind of want because they're looking for something better down the road. That's like a fundamental tenet of human growth of any kind,
I think it's also interesting how often movies and art riff off this sacrificial idea. And Jesus says, no love is greater than this, than he's willing to lay down his life for his friends. And God demonstrated his love for us in this, that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. I think we're really moved by stories of maybe soldiers laying down their life for their country. That we see that as a great sacrifice of love, and we honor that. Harry Potter dying at the end of the story because he's got the Horcrux of evil inside of him, and so he has to die and be raised to life to fight off and defeat the devil, or Voldemort. So it just there was you think about all the great movies, and there is a level of personal sacrifice on behalf of a group of people. Saving Private Ryan, how that ends, where Tom Hanks sacrifices himself, and they're doing it for Private Ryan. They're saving Private Ryan. That's even in the title. So we can't get away from it. This is an idea that Christianity made up. It's the desire of the human heart that love equals sacrifice.
And I think in any story, like, the hero has to throw off their old vice or their weakness of some kind, and they don't want to. They're selfish and they're clinging to whatever that thing is. But in order to become the hero, they have to, shed that old, we would call old Adam or whatever, and then they become wiser and stronger because of it.
And usually the most ideal hero is somebody who sacrifices themselves on behalf of others. That is the height of their love, that they would lay down their life for their family or instead of being selfish. And Jesus is the ideal of sacrifice.
Yeah. So there's lots of stuff in this this TikTok. The fact that God would, I don't even know where to start. The fact that God would save us by sacrificing himself and then use that to guilt trip us into loving him.
Oof.
And I don't think he does.
I don't think so either.
I think we have the guilt already. I think we have the guilt for all the things we've done wrong. And he's not guilt tripping anyone into saying, he's just giving you a get out of jail free card. You can take it or leave it. Yeah.
And Jesus says, no one takes my life from me, but I give it up on my own accord. And my sheep know my voice. He's not forcing anyone to come into his flock. And he's not, we shouldn't see this as, sometimes I've heard it, divine child abuse, punishing your son. Jesus says, I gave up my life on my own accord, that he wanted to. And there are lots of hints in the text where the religious leaders didn't want Jesus to be sacrificed during the Passover festival, and Jesus intentionally wanted to go to the cross, that he was still in charge of his own death. He willfully gave up his life. So, yeah, you're right. I don't think there's any, it's when very often people who have had broken lives see this not as a story that's manipulating them, but a beautiful story of redemption. And then she says in there that she can atone for her own sins.
That's what I was going to get to next.
And it's interesting.
Well, first of all, what has she done so wrong? I mean, she said literally probably at least a half dozen times, so wrong, so serious, so bad. What are the things that have been so bad that somebody needed to die for them? What are the things that were so wrong, so serious?
So this is the fundamental issue. Is she said, well, I can atone for my own sin or mistakes. Well, that depends on what is the law of the land. If it's your law and there is no sin, then you don't need to atone for anything. And she said, I haven't done anything so wrong, but you have done something wrong.
Well, correct.
Have done something wrong according to whom? According to you?
Right. According
Does everybody
to the law,
get their own law? Does
right.
everyone get their own book? Because if everyone gets their own book, you can't get mad at anybody else. And they can't get mad at you.
Yep.
And you have no way of proving it's wrong. You have to either have a standard or none whatsoever, meaning that nothing is wrong and nothing is right. But that's obviously not the case. People literally are incapable of making decisions without a sense of moral purpose. Yeah. You can't go into a situation and say, this is better or worse. Like you would never make a decision. Like there's always a compass there. I could do this, I should do this, or, this would be better, this would be worse. There's always a compass attached to everything we do. It's what guides our decisions towards an ordered society and not just people randomly doing anything they want at any given time. You're always passing a judgment, a value judgment on everything you do.
Right.
So if there's value judgments and if you can see around you that people tend to have the same values, to me that hints that there is one value. There is one ultimate standard. Right? Either that or people evolved and they just constructed these things socially and they passed them down the ancestral line, in which case still it doesn't matter. There still is technically no standard whether or not you have a community of people or one person. It's either all or nothing. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not your standard, if it's somebody else's standard, then you don't get to decide the rules and say, well, I haven't done anything that wrong. Well, you don't know what the punishment is. You don't know what the standard is.
I think that's why, sorry for keep quoting the Alexander Solzhenitsyn, but he talked about when you're really evil, you need a new ideology. You need to come up with a whole new system where you can, and that's what's so interesting about how the Bible really does portray sin in the opening chapters of the Bible. It talks about eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And what that story is talking about is how human beings tried to make up their own view of good and evil. They're eating from that tree saying, now I want to be a judge of good and evil. I want to decide what's right and wrong. And that's kind of what she's doing. I haven't done anything really wrong, because she's redefining what good and evil is. And you're moving the goalposts to fit your game. So it's just fascinating that ancient story still stands as to how this actually plays out. It's hard for us to admit we've actually done something wrong. We always find a way to move the goalposts. We always find a way to justify it.
And to compare to others. Well, I didn't do anything that bad.
Right.
My neighbor did this, but I only did that.
Right.
It's all bad still.
Right. And to actually have to, the only way out is if you do have a rescuer. The only way you're able to stomach, I did something wrong, is if there's potential for it to be redeemed. So,
but she can do that. She can
atone
for it.
It's interesting she uses that word too.
Well, she has a history, I think, in Christian and as a Christian, and I've watched quite a bit of her content, and she did the practices and the praying and the this and the that, and so that's another TikTok.
It's another video. Yeah, I think it is hard for us to. Matt, how do you understand blood sacrifice or the sacrifice of Jesus? Why did it have to be Jesus on a cross dying? What would you say?
Well, I don't know if it has to be on a cross. There's a lot of ways to kill somebody, but
that was how crucifixion happened, though. At that,
yeah,
right? So
exactly.
I think part of the story is that it's the most horrific story. He's abandoned by his friends, betrayed by another friend, betrayed by the people he came to save, betrayed by people he loved, falsely accused, killed in a horrendous way.
Mocked, yeah, totally.
Mocked, everything, humiliated. His reputation is destroyed. He loses absolutely everything. And not only is he God's son, but he's also God, and he's a guy. So it's like it's a guy. It's you dying, but it's also you giving up the life of your child, which is like the most painful thing a human can do. And he's literally doing both of those things at the same exact time. Like it's the worst possible pain a human can endure, probably on all those levels. And so, like that's why it's the ultimate sacrifice,
right? Because people were crucified, other people were crucified, but this had all of that extra stuff to go along with it,
right? And so why did he need to die? Well, I was going to say exactly what Ben said. The Bible says the soul who sins is the one who shall die. The wages of sin is death. The story of creation is the story of God creating life, human sin, and what immediately happens? Everything starts dying. That's the price of sin. So God demands righteous blood, and he's the only one that can do it. And so, you could say, why does he have to do that? Well, because that's who he is. Like, he can't change who he is. And like, if he were to say, okay, you don't have to do that. You just have to pray 100 Hail Marys. Every person, just pray 100 Hail Marys and you're good. But then he's no longer a holy God. Now he's a different guy who says you just have to be pretty okay to get into heaven. And he says, like, no, heaven is entirely good. I want to take you to a place that's entirely good, entirely holy, entirely perfect. But you can't be there if you are sinful, because if you're there, then it's not good anymore. So you have to be perfect.
Everyone.
You have to be perfect in order to be there. Yes, exactly. You'd ruin it for everyone else. So that's why the price is so high.
Yeah. And I think, a lot of people were crucified, like you said, Annie, and there was extra stuff. And the big extra thing is the resurrection. Lots of people were crucified. Nobody was resurrected. And Jesus showing us what our future will be. Paul says one day he will transform our lowly bodies to be like Christ's glorious body, that everything that is wrong and twisted and evil that's connected to death will be untrue. We kind of laugh maybe at some of the Old Testament regulations of being ceremonially unclean, but there was a lot of symbolism with sores or bodily fluids leaving your body, things like that. And these were all symbols of life leaving your body. They were teaching tools about life leaving and death being part of your body.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
I'm a 13-year-old.
Yeah, 13-year-old over here. And so the whole Bible is trying to teach us that God was not just trying to pay for sin. He's trying to remake all things, renew it all. Mm-hmm. And so many of Jesus' miracles, why didn't he heal everybody? Well, it was just little pockets of showing what the renewed world is going to be like. Mm-hmm. And one day he's going to heal everybody completely. So I think as much as maybe she has focused on the death of Jesus and why he had to die, I think we also should emphasize the life of Jesus and why he had to be resurrected, and why that's so special.
And it's taking all the good things for granted. And it's taking life for granted. Like, we don't need God and religion and Jesus. Like, we're just fine here on our own. It's like, well, yeah, we're living in the world he made.
Yeah.
It's not that simple.
Mm-hmm. So I think if you talk about it sarcastically, flippantly, it seems archaic and strange. But when you really look fundamentally at who we are, what we've done, what we need, it's no wonder that every other story is echoing this story. Mm-hmm. That this is the ultimate story that everybody's riffing off of and trying to recreate. Yeah. So, and you as a movie guy can see that, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, like, that's like every hero in every movie that anyone has ever wanted to watch has to give up something to get something better. I mean, that sacrifice is built into our brains. And the other thing that's built into our brains, the most like satisfying, thing for humans to witness is justice. So people slow down and watch when people get pulled over. Yeah. Saying justice, like, how many times has someone cut you off and then, you're like, oh, I hope they get pulled over.
Yeah.
You got what you deserve, because in that moment, like, you just created a story start to finish. You said person did something wrong, they were punished immediately. That's the essence of every story, and it's justice. And that's what we want, and that's what we like desperately feel for ourselves too, which is why people feel guilt, because it's urging them to pay for something that they know they need to pay for.
Mm-hmm.
So guilt is not a bad thing per se. Like, crippling guilt is bad. Overwhelming guilt that just completely overcomes you, that's bad. But guilt really isn't like...
Or you're a sociopath. If you don't have guilt, you're a sociopath.
Well, right.
Right?
Oh. No, I'm kidding. But I think people do have different sensitivities to guilt.
Right.
But
if you harden your heart,
well, right.
It's not good.
It's a compass.
It's a compass.
It's a compass.
And it shouldn't send you into a spiral, but it should provide you some type of, I need to make adjustments here, like, there's a reason I'm feeling this way. What do I need to do to fix it? Not because I have to, but because I want to.
Right.
Yeah.
Conscience makes us human, right? Mm-hmm. Think about Pinocchio.
Yeah.
Well, and
animals don't.
Right.
They
don't think about it.
Or do dogs? I don't know.
Maybe.
Maybe.
And people will say things. People always say, like, don't judge. But it's like, you can't tell me that when like a story comes out in the newspaper of like, you know, so-and-so did this or that.
You're
that
the first
like,
one judging.
Should have been, you know?
Yeah.
Reading the police logs or whatever in the newspaper, where it's like, oh, so-and-so got busted for this. And you're like, good.
Yeah.
You just made a judgment.
Yeah.
You just said that person got served, and that is a good thing. You know?
Yeah, we have a sense of
wired
justice.
into you.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, that's really important. The one thing that's not in these videos, and both of them we looked at, and I think we have to ask the question, is there real evil, and is there a real evil one? Is there really a devil? And did Jesus really have to defeat the work of the devil? And I think that as much as we want to just look at things maybe psychologically or call things, you know, mental health issues, I do believe there's a real devil and there's a real sin. And so,
not saying that there's not mental health issues, not saying that
correct.
psychology is not valid, but
exactly right. You can't dismiss it all to that.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like, yeah, we already said I'm taking classes to be a mental health counselor. I believe in all that, but it can't only be reduced to that. There is such a thing as the devil, who is using all of these things to cause more chaos. And it's true. It's real. And I think it's interesting how many people are more interested in the paranormal and ghosts and the spiritual evil. As much as we want to explain that away, it's really a part of our world. And Jesus did come to defeat the work of the devil. So that was just something that has been brought up, and I think we have to be honest about. Yeah.
Yeah, that seems like something that probably scares people away. Like, they just don't want to mess with that.
Right.
Or they don't believe it's a supernatural, like,
right,
hocus pocus, right?
Right. The idea of evil, I think, is the thing that they're shying away from in general.
Yeah.
Like, it's this mistake. It's this honest mistake. It's always an honest, understandable, bad circumstances mistake.
And that being said, it can be overblown where you see a witch around every corner and, you know, you see a problem and, you know, you see the devil in everything, in every detail. But I think we've gone the other extreme of trying to explain away the devil in every case possible, and I don't think we can. There's just some things that are just so purely evil, they're diabolical. And we just have to be aware of that, because I think that's one of the tricks of the devil, is to believe he doesn't exist. So we really do need real redemption. We need spiritual power. We need Jesus to defeat the work of the evil one. And if we don't acknowledge that, I think that is really dangerous. That's really dangerous. All right. Anything else? Annie, Matt?
I think I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we solved it.
All right.
Solving the world's problems.
Bring
Here we
me
go.
a more challenging one.
See you guys. If you'd like to get a hold of us here at the Climbing Sycamores podcast, feel free to email bsadler@victoryofthelamb.com. bsadler@victoryofthelamb.com. If you like today's intro music, it's been brought to you by Andrew Lynch's song, My Name, Hello.